Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Crazy time right now, but we're pleased to have you here for the debut of EC-CHAP spoken word series. And we're hopeful that there's enough writers and readers out there that may wish to participate, and we're happy to continue this offering on a monthly basis. We'd also like to remind you that we're extending our talent showcase on a virtual platform, and we'll be live streaming that session on July 16th, also at 7 o'clock. We hope you can join us. Stay safe and enjoy.
Hello, my name is Arlene Avery. I'm from Stafford. Recently, I wrote my first article for the Neighbors newspaper, a local newspaper that is published here in the Quiet Corner. And it's about a hike I took into Nipmuc Forest on a snowy April morning, and it's called A Snowy April Morning. Woke early Saturday, April 18th, to a lovely spring snowstorm. Had my coffee and breakfast, laced up my boots, grabbed my camera, and bounded out the door for a snowy walk into Nipmuc State Forest. We are so blessed to live in Connecticut's Quiet Corner, where a forest is never far away. For me, it's just a short walk from my home. I love walking in the forest, especially when it's snowing. We had far too little snow this year for what I call a true New England winter. Feeling so snow deprived made this rare spring snow an even greater treat. My dad, an old-time farmer, calls spring snow the poor man's fertilizer. It has more nitrogen in it to nourish the soil than the usual snow we get over the winter months. Walking past Arnold Pond on an old cart path, I hear the familiar spring songs of red-winged blackbirds coming from the back swamp. The steadily falling snow doesn't deter them from their pursuit of finding mates. Crossing over the bridge spanning Roaring Brook, I accidentally startle 4 American black ducks who noisily fly away. They remind me that this is their home, where they feed, make their nests, and breed. I am just a casual visitor who must be mindful to travel quietly and not disturb the forest dwellers. I enter my favorite part of the forest. It feels sacred here. I can feel the presence of the ancestors. The land gives way to soft, undulating slopes. The trees are mostly conifers, eastern hemlocks, and white pines. Though this isn't an old-growth forest, the trees seem ancient, having endured hundreds of storms. Hemlock branches bow low, laden with heavy, wet snow. I travel on to where the trail comes to a fork. I take the left-handed path. The trail eases downward. I notice remnants of an old stone wall meandering between trees. Soon I come to a brook. I believe it's called Stoughton Brook. It fills the air with a soft, sweet, bubbling song. I continue on, noticing stone foundations on my left and what looks like a former field or pasture to my right. The forest is slowly reclaiming the land. Soon I reach Roaring Brook once again. I get why they named it Roaring Brook. It's loud, and it looks like it's roaring through in a huge hurry to join the Willimantic River further south. I cross the bridge, scale the slight hill, and leave the forest behind. My walk in Nipmuc Forest was delightful. a welcome reprieve from our current plight with COVID-19. Back in October, I attended the Connecticut Forest Forum. I was disappointed to learn that Connecticut is ranked last among the northeastern states in protected forest land. Our more rural, quiet corner with its many state and private forests and land trusts is unlike much of the rest of Connecticut. Our forests and wetlands are vital for biodiversity and our future survival. As a tree grows and matures, it takes in more and more carbon dioxide, storing it in its wood, down into its roots, and even deeper into the ground. I encourage everyone to treasure and protect our trees and forest lands, and if you are able, take a walk into a nearby forest, explore and savor its natural beauty. Thank you.
My name is Robert Joy. I'm writing a memoir entitled Appreciating the Sky. I want to read a short excerpt from my book. It's called Appreciating the Sky, and it'll explain why I've chosen that title. There are three people in this piece, Marilyn, myself, Bob, and our friend Bob, so it may be a little confusing at times, but when it's myself, I will say I, and when it's the other person, it will be Bob. Okay, Appreciating the Sky. January 1969, I was 19. I worked second shift at the Institute of Living in Hartford, Connecticut. This was a very prestigious private psychiatric hospital founded in 1822. It was known as IOL, the Institute. The patients referred to it as the Country Club. I lived on the grounds. I spent most of my time off with my first love, Marilyn Neighbors. She was 21, 2 years older than me, and she also worked second shift at IOL. She was Jim Neighbors' cousin, you know, the guy that played Gomer Pyle, though she didn't look a bit like him. At the end of 1968 and the first half of 1969, Marilyn and I were close friends with a 20-year-old Trinity College student named Bob Amadon. He worked part-time second shift at the Institute also, and that's how we met. I met him first and introduced him to Marilyn. We three just connected. It felt like we were meant to be friends, like somehow we had always known each other. On the nights that Bob worked, we settled into this regular routine. We'd get off work at 11:30 p.m., go to Friendly's for a cup of corn chowder, and then go to Marilyn's apartment to listen to music and have an all-night gab session. We had so much to talk about. Philosophies and ideas to share, stories to tell about our lives. We were young, and life seemed so full of promise. Life was exciting. It was the 60s. We'd talk into the night then, contented, sometimes till 4 or 5 a.m. Then we'd say goodnight to Marilyn. Bob and I would walk back to the dorms at Trinity. I'd bid him goodnight, and then I'd continue on that solitary walk back to my dorm room at the Institute. Looking back on this with the insight that I have now, I think Marilyn and I were both in love with Bob. He was a blonde, blue-eyed cherub. His energy was so upbeat and positive. He had so many meaningful ideas to share with us. He was kind and caring. He was beautiful. He showed his emotions freely. Once I read him a poem called Elegy for the Braved. It was about a soldier sleeping in a green valley beside a river. At the end it said, he doesn't see the mountains or hear the river sigh. He doesn't feel the wind as it whispers drifting by. And he'll never know the sorrow or the faces stained with tears or share the passing days as they turn into years. At the beginning of the poem, the young soldier was referred to as the sleeper in the valley. By the end, you realize he had been killed in battle and his body had been left in the valley where he lay. Bob was so moved by the poem and not afraid to show it. It brought tears to his eyes. These were the kind of things that we shared, things that were meaningful to us as individuals. Right after Christmas 1968, I took time off work and flew home so I could spend the first week of the new year with my family in Monongahela, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. I returned to Connecticut. When I returned, I was anxious to spend time with people I loved, Marilyn and Bob. I was experiencing a deep depression and I just couldn't shake it. I was 19 years old and I just didn't know what to do with my life. I hadn't experienced a deep depression before. It was the first time, but it wouldn't be the last. I thought somehow being with Bob and Marilyn would make things better. We listened to Simon and Garfunkel's album, Old Friends. Towards the end of the album, before they sang the song Old Friends, there was a cut containing only dialogue. It was called The Voices of Old People. This record was a favorite of mine and had inspired me to tape conversations with Bob and Marilyn and other people and to keep a taped journal. At the end of this cut of the Voices of Old People, a lady, an elderly lady in a nursing home was asked, "Are you happy here?" She responded, "Well, you could say that, but what's really beautiful is to have your own room and your own home." "Oh, Jesus," Bob gasped as the old lady's voice faded. "We have so much to be grateful for when you think of old people like that," I said. "I'm afraid of getting old," said Marilyn. "This is really great the way we're sharing our feelings," Bob said. I felt it was time to talk to them about how depressed I was. Before I went home for New Year's, I felt so happy. I was happy every day. I was happy. I was pleased by everything I saw. Nothing in the world could make me sad. "Wow," Bob said. "Things were great at home, and now I've come back and I'm depressed. I feel sad and hopeless. I don't know where I'm going. I feel like I'm falling apart." "No, you're not, Bob. You're growing," Marilyn insisted. "I'm deteriorating." "You're not. You're growing. There's always a lot of pain and doubt involved. But I want to go back to the way I was, being happy." "Don't want to go back to something," Bob said. "I'm going to say something to you now that you may not understand, but one day you will. The people who appreciate the sky are the ones who dug in the ground." "How did you say that?" Marilyn asked. "The people who appreciate the sky are the ones who dug in the ground. Do you connect?" I shook my head no. "You will, one day. In 1973, listening to this tape, you'll remember me and what I said. The people who appreciate the sky are the ones who dug in the ground." 4 years later, 1973, life was quite different. Marilyn had moved back to North Carolina and I'd lost track of her. And dear Bob had been killed in Vietnam. He'd become the sleeper in the valley. I listened to his words on the tape and understood his message. Digging in the ground, that's the difficult things we have to go through in life. The hard times, they happen and there's no avoiding it. You have to dig in the ground. I've dug in the ground a lot in my life, but with age, I've done it less and less. Appreciating the sky is appreciating all the good things we have in our life, having the ability to feel gratitude for what is good in life and being able to see miracles and even the smallest things. That's appreciating the sky. You can't really appreciate the sky unless you've dug in the ground. I found the older I get, I appreciate the sky more and more, almost every day. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dottie Rice from Bolton, and the poem that I am going to read to you was inspired by the life of a woman whom I knew for 44 years, who watched my children when they were young, and who, as time went on, had a life that became increasingly difficult. In the last 15 or so years, she and I spent quite a bit of time together. I helped her at her farm, and with food and doctor's visits and things of that nature. Towards the end, her dementia made things very difficult. And 2 years after her death, I had to watch her 300-year-old house and her farm get bulldozed down. And so this is one story of life that I will now read to you. The rocks she collected and brought home to keep were back in the soil where memories run deep, where memories run deep, because the house got bulldozed down. Yes, the house got bulldozed down. Stove wood for a fire piled high to dry, now buried and lost, no eggs to fry. Antiques hidden in a hoarder's shack, out of sight, out of mind, no bringing 'em back, 'cause the house got bulldozed down. Sheets and pillows where one once slept, rat-ridden, torn, soiled, and unkept. Sweaters and coats, jewelry and keys could once have brought beggars to their knees. Homeless as those lost to the street, a mind so imprisoned, ruled by defeat. Ceilings covered in cardboard did fall, tape failing to hold plaster to the walls. In need of repair, many appliances there, no food from the store, shelves looking bare. Radiators for warming the contents of cans, mittens and hats and cold-fingered hands. Sleep on the floor in a crowded space, cat in your arms, coat warming your face. No energy to even discard the trash. Empty cans line the hallway with no refund for cash. And that house got bulldozed down. Don't open the door to strangers who might tell the authorities of the poor woman's plight. Dementia takes over, playing games with the mind, diligently seeking loved ones to find. Hopes that someday someone would restore the house that was once home, but now exists no more. Is worth defined in the eyes of the beholder? Is it habit to possess as we get older? Several items, perhaps valuable to many, while others would not even bring a penny. But they all got bulldozed down. And when we've departed, there's no holding on, 'cause what was once possessed is now all but gone. A favorite apple tree with blossoms once adored on the sunset's horizon towers no more. No longer can it nourish the woodland deer. Applesauce and pies become treasures of yesteryear. Yes, the tree got bulldozed down. Lost is the beautiful quarried stone on which she sat, perhaps awaiting a friend or hoping he'd come back. Kitty cat and dog filling emptiness of heart. Sadly, death would render them apart. Old basement jars speak to canning in the past, so that harvested fruits and vegetables would be sure to last. But now the broken shards only speak to history, buried in the soil, contents no longer a mystery, as the house got bulldozed down. Efforts to tame the water sneaking through damaged walls, though cries for help, many unanswered distress calls. Tires would haul the field's gifts of hay, where through winter till spring in the barn it would lay. And after much work, those tires would share space in same field, tossed without care. Old tractors and trucks mottled with rust, crushed fenders, lost parts, all turned to dust. A milk room attached to the barn, once with care, later a lost business and no milk to spare. Cows without purpose, but now free to roam, Grasses and sunshine redefine home. Skyline laid bare but for few trees. Roofline and chimney gone to disease. We often shoveled snow for the oilman's path, but now no pipe nor tank in the aftermath. Just our brain taking our body on a journey. From dawn to setting sun, so much we are learning. Her soul was molded in the never-ending toil of the farm. Muddy ruts and cornfields gave it its charm. Gardens to tend, fields to plow, getting veggies to market and milk from the cow. And as a child she did tell of wishes granted at the wishing well. A husky farm worker who lived in their shack brought the gift of a saddle for her horse's back. So many good days from youth were recalled, warm comfort with Kitty between the stove and the wall. Italian aromas of so many years past, shadows of steaming essence on the walls cast. Food and good health were once in abundance, unlike today. Loneliness and illness now bring one to their knees to pray. And then without warning comes the worst storm, life-changing, mind-changing, changing her form. Visions of past intrude on her being. The unreal and long gone is all that she's seeing. Dementia takes over, enhancing the risk that rarely again can true truth exist. That reality drove her to walk streets at night, running from visions that caused growing fright. Till scooped up by authorities and concerned passers-by, off to hospitals and nursing homes where you could hear her cry. No longer an understanding of when, where, and why, as the days and weeks continued to pass her by. She would argue and fret over her new venue, not even remembering how it all became true. The possibility of returning home and driving her car again was snuffed out like the candle that one forgets to tend. Like that candle whose flame is drowned in its own wax, a good-meaning society knows not what it lacks. Though not really forgotten, she essentially was, 'cause being alone in one's mind becomes insanity's cause. Home was demolished, laid rest 'neath the soil, death putting end to troubles and toil. Yes, the house was bulldozed down. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Murray. I am a poet, and I'm going to be reading you some of my poetry right now. So let us start, and I will begin with a poem called Coming Forth. Now this has to do with the Egyptian Book of the Dead. If you're not familiar with that, you'll figure out some of the stuff as I read it. So here we go. Coming Forth. I come forth by day as Osiris, am cut to pieces and scattered over the desert of Set. The bone of the Mother of Heaven, a son to be Pharaoh to the ends of earth. First come fiery tests, then am I weighed against the feather of truth. In my fertility and death, I am God. The Mother of Heaven weaves her magic spell, and I am whole. I come forth by day and live for eternity. Here's one called Sunlight, which needs no introduction. I wake in the glistening of teary sunlight, and by angel touch am I joyous. God sings of peace. I sing with the divine, and sunlight warms my body. Here's a poem called A Puzzle. Our illusion is the cloak of ego. It tests us who we are, and thereafter are we comforted. Ego has become over domination, and because of this, castles burn and innocence dies. The true self is naked before the divine, and in nakedness is truly no shame, though laws and judgments make it so. If we have known Eve in her beauty, it should not be made pornographic. If we have known Eve in her nakedness, the sin of knowing is turning from the divine to make us grow, to make us anew, with no creator. If our beliefs harbor such, are we not sparks of creation? I have a couple more poems to read, and that will be it. Free. We are drops of water in the ocean of time, moving in eternity, moving as we will, without form, without self, and we are joined each to each other in the dance of time. My wounds are healing, are they not part of you? Today I am a raindrop, tomorrow I am dew. Today I give breath to the trees, tomorrow I enrich the soil into the cycle of the seasons. I'm spinning with you. And the last one is called Dreamer. Such dream as we are the sparks of light in universal mind. I travel beyond the edges of this dream to know the dreamer and to feel the warmth of reality as a dolphin coming up for air, as a flying squirrel gliding in the trees. Am I not meant to traverse? Am I not to know the full brilliance of the sunshine on my tear-stained face? Glory to life, and thank you for sharing the voyage. And thank you very much.
Acknowledging our spring of 2020, I thought I'd read this piece a little bit by Sitting Bull. Short, I just think it says it rather nicely. Behold, my brothers, the spring has come. The earth has received the embraces of the sun, and we shall soon see the results of that love. Every seed is awakened. And with that, it awakened thoughts of romance as spring's supposed to bring us to, but maybe it won't. Like a kiss from a friend on a blue sky day, knowing there is so much more to come, so much more to embrace this day and all those yet to be. There is a story in those eyes and a song in her heart. Love to hear her song. A song may not be all or enough. The start of a new day, fresh and clear, a blue sky day. Almost like a song, almost like a dream, like a star-filled night sky. All because of some flowers given a time ago. Maybe it too was a blue sky day. A short embrace, tear-filled eyes, quietly blinked away, and words not said, but so much exchanged. Couldn't forget and often thought of the coming storms in our lives, not seen, or maybe just not acknowledged. And the years have passed, our eyes still meet. Something unsaid, a mystical memory embraced. Maybe another time we'll embrace and we'll notice the sky, blue. And I'll get to hold on to you, some bright blue sky day, lying in a flower-filled field, embracing what we find there. No tears. And this time the embrace lingers. Fingers intertwined, a quiet kiss, exposing the truth of our hearts, and finally free to be, hearts alike, you and me. We finally see in quiet expectation, and we trust and dream, embracing each other's hearts and more. All this on a blue sky day and a kiss. All that romance, it didn't work out, but we're still pals, And then that reminded me of another time, 1969, this summer, and this lady I met, Dawn. But the Beach Boys truly inspired this one, their song Caroline No, which is about a love ending, a summer romance ending. So this piece called Days of Dawn. Summer, soft and warm, memories of a boy and a girl one summer when I was young. A kiss, a touch, a look, that smile, it all meant so much. The memory fills a book. Riverside is renamed, the A&W across the street is gone. I know, but I still look and smile, remembering that summer and those days of dawn. Sleeping in the pool house in borrowed clothes, hitching a ride to see a girl I came to know as Dawn. One summer, when the world was new. Whatever became of me and you. A girlish smile, a boyish look, was all it took that summer at the beach. Sun and sand and laughter, an innocent kiss. Feeding hills has fed my memories of those days of dawn, like a summer song or a summer flower, never forgetting those days of dawn. Sun and sand, soft and warm, those days of dawn, and that summer a long time gone. And let's see. And then I guess I'm going to stay with this theme of romance that kind of came and went. We're still pals. This is somebody else. But anyway, we're on a boat. I don't know what year I wrote this, but anyway. Setting sail in the dark before the dawn on the Dorothy Elizabeth. Smooth and sleek, quiet as she in the water. Past the point in the lighthouse we are as the sun rises and warms a new day. We sail into the horizon. Her sails unfurl like her hair to be caught by the breeze, taking us to a far distant shore where we drop anchor in our clothes and run naked on the beach, touched by the sun where the rules and society are just out of reach. We swim back and sail off into the waning light and sail into the night on the moonlit sea, where stars are reflected on the water, sparkling and shimmering like jewels. I wake in the berth and the warmth of the Dorothy Elizabeth as she gently rocks back and forth in a quiet cove where I've tied her up for the night. And one more. All right, let's see. Did I get this right? Cool. All right. I wrote this in October of last year. It's written but not been tried, so let's see how this works. The promise that youth offered, time-tested, our involuntary resistance, explaining those childish moments of immaturity. Years later, recognizing that boy or girl in the mirror and wishing you had kept that promise to ourselves. But the future rushed in and plans changed, the dream grew faint. Not as our eyes changed, it was the perspective. The promise not quite forgotten, but lost with what life brought. The changes to succeed, to find happiness, not necessarily the same thing. And then there's love, or what was thought to be love. Treacherous territory, and no guide or map. Just two hearts dancing in the gray area. We all protest or fail to recognize in each other or ourselves. All those discoveries await there. A new world of fear to share, of longing, torment, or terror, anguish, and ecstasy, tender and delicate, tested and lasting, or over too soon. No lesson there. Just the questions that never got answered. Sometimes afraid to ask. The honest answer is not necessarily accepted or required. We just know a promise was broken. It leaves us sad with a tear we hide and anger at ourselves for caring. The experience of being human, not really so bad, just doesn't always feel so good. And we promise no more promises, more of that youthful approach to the future. But at some point we realize there are no promises. Thank you.